Okay, I'm going to show you a 12 row pattern for a toddler sweater I am working on. And I'm using a single strand of Heartland yarn on Lions brand Heartland yarn on an 80 peg 3/8 inch loom. And what I am doing is a 6 stitch cable cross and a 4 stitch cable cross in here. And while it seems a little airy, when it comes off the loom, that's going to close up quite a bit more. And the great thing is, because I'm using a single strand, it shouldn't get too hot. So the 12 row set is, you're going to be twisting the 6 stitch right cable cross twice in that 12 row set, and every 4th row you're going to be doing the 4 right peg cable cross. So here's how I like to keep up with it. I count from 1 to 12. So I've got the reason why I did it at this point. Now, if you're wondering, on the bottom I did a seat stitch for like 10-12 rows, and then this is my setup. After I did that, this is my setup. I knit 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So I knit in 11, then I purl 1, ear wrap 4, purl 1, ear wrap 6, purl 1, ear wrap 4, purl 1, and then knit my way back to my starting point. And this is row 1. Now rows 1, 2, and 3 are the same. So continue that for 2 more rows, and then I will show you the 4th row. Okay, we're now to row 4. So we're going to knit in 11. You're going to purl 1. Then you're going to skip pegs 1 and 2. Ear wrap pegs 3 and 4. Take your stitch holder, place loop 4, then the loop 3 onto the stitch holder, hold to the center of the loom. Okay, you're going to move the working yarn in front of the stitch holder and ear wrap pegs 1 and 2. Move loop 2 to peg 4 and loop 1 to peg 3. Then take your stitch holder and take loop 3 and place onto peg 1, and loop 4 and place onto peg 2. Then snug up your loop starting from peg 1 through 4. Then you're going to purl 1, E-wrap 6, purl 1, then you're going to do the 4 cable cross, so skip pegs 1 and 2, E-wrap pegs 3 and 4, take loop 4, place it on the stitch holder, then loop 3, place it on the stitch holder, hold to the center of the loom, take your working yarn in front of your stitch holder, E-wrap pegs 1, then 2, move stitch 2 to peg 4, stitch 1, stitch 1 to peg 3, pick up your stitch holder, place stitch 3 onto peg 1 and stitch 4 onto peg 2. Snug up your loops, starting from peg 1. This gives you a nice clean cable to do that. Purl 1 and then knit the rest of the way over. Okay, this is row 5, so we're going to knit over 11. Purl 1, E-wrap 4, purl 1, and we're fixing to need to do a right cable cross on the next row on our 6. So what we're going to do is we're going to double wrap the first 3 pegs, and then single wrap the last 3. Toss bottom loop over. What this does is it allows the stitches to be looser, but not so loose that it changes the uniformity of the cabling. Purl 1, E-wrap 4, purl 1, and knit the way back. Okay, this is row 6, so knit over 11. Purl 1, E-wrap 4, purl 1. Here's where you're going to release those top wraps. And what that's going to do is give you looser stitches, and you're going to loosen them up to where they're fairly even across those 6 stitches. Now what you're going to do is you're going to skip pegs 1 2, and 3, ear wrap pegs 4, 5, and 6. And you're going to place stitch 6, then stitch 5, and then stitch 4 onto your stitch holder. Hold to the center of the loom. Take your working yarn in front of the stitch holder and ear wrap pegs 1, 2, and 3. Now you're going to move stitch 3 to peg 6, stitch 2 to peg 5, stitch 1 to peg 4. You're going to pick up your stitch holder and you're going to take off stitch 4, and place on to stitch 1, peg 1. Then you're going to take off stitch 5, place on peg 2, then place stitch 6 on peg 3. Now what you're going to do after you get done doing that is you're going to snug up all your loops starting from peg 1 and going through to peg 6. Again, this gives a more uniform look to your cables. Then you're going to purl 1, ear wrap 4, purl 1, and knit your way over. At this point, you're going to repeat row 1 for row 7. So go ahead and pause the video and complete row 7, which is the same as row 1 of our set, and then I will go from there and show you the next row, which is row 8. Okay, at this point, because we're on row 8, what you're going to do is you're going to go back and you're going to repeat row 4 for row 8, and then you're going to do 9 and 10 are repeats of row 1. So row 8 is a repeat of row 4, and row 9 and 10 is a repeat of row 1. So go ahead and complete those next rows, and then I will show you how to do row 11 and 12 to show you the complete 12 row set. Okay, now we're to row 11, where we're going to prep for all of our sections to be cabled, our 2 sections of 4 and 1 section of 6. So go ahead and knit over 11, purl 1. You're going to double wrap the first peg and single wrap the next ones. Toss the bottom loop over, purl 1. You're going to double wrap the first 3, so there's 1, there's 2, and there's 3, and then single wrap the last 3. Toss the bottom loop over, purl 1, double wrap the first one, single wrap the last 3. Purl 1, knit over to the beginning, okay, now we're to row 12, so you're going to knit over 11, purl 1, and then what you're going to do is you're going to release that top loop and then loosen up evenly the other 3. You're going to skip pegs 1 and 2, you wrap pegs 3 and 4. Take your stitch holder, put stitch 4, then stitch 3 onto your stitch holder, hold it to the center, bring your working yarn in front of your stitch holder, you wrap pegs 1, then 2, move stitch 2 over to peg 4, and peg 1 over to peg 3, then you're going to move stitch 3 to peg 1, and stitch 4 to peg 2, snug up your loop starting from your first peg over to your 4th peg. This allows your cabling to stay even. Purl 1. Now you're going to go in and release your top loops on those first 3 pegs. Then you're going to go in and you're going to loosen up the last 3 and try to get it as even as possible. Okay, now you're going to skip pegs 1, 2, and 3, and you wrap pegs 4, 5, and 6. Then you're going to take stitch 6, then stitch 5, and then stitch 4, put them onto the stitch holder, place them to the center of the loom, take your working yarn in front of your stitch holder, and you wrap pegs 1, 2, and 3. Toss the bottom loops over. Then you're going to move stitch 3 to peg 6, stitch 2 to peg 5, stitch 1 to peg 4. Then you're going to go and pull stitch 4 from your stitch holder and put it onto peg 1. Then take 5 from your stitch holder and place it onto peg 2. Then place stitch 6 onto peg 3. Go in and snug up your stitches from the first peg to the 6th peg, keeping your cabling uniform. Purl 1, release the top stitch on the first peg on the 4, loosen that up over the next 3. Now you're going to do your 4 peg cable cross, so skip pegs 1 and 2, you're at pegs 3 and 4. Now pull and E-wrap pegs 1 and 2. Place loop 2 to peg 4, loop 1 to peg 3, stitch 3 to peg 1, and stitch 4 to peg 2. Snug up your loops. Now purl 1 and then knit your way back to the beginning. At this point you'll continue to do the 12 row set, however many rows you need for the length you want. Now that is the 12 row set, and as you can see, that is what the cabling looks like on the front. And once you get it to a point you like it, then you're going to be decreasing on the sides, like here and here. And you're going to be working flat the front section, then the back section, decreasing to be able to add in your sleeves later to finish up the neck. And just to be able to get prepped, you'll need to be able to keep up with your 12 row set as you're doing this. So just to get you started, I'm going to take the first one, knit it, put it over to the second peg, toss the bottom loop over, and then knit over. And then purl. So if you're using stitch markers, you'll know when you need to start purling, and that'll make it a lot easier. I can visually see what I'm doing underneath. Okay, then you're going to E-wrap 4, toss the bottom loops over, purl 1, E-wrap 6, purl 1, E-wrap 4, purl 1, then you're going to knit over 10. There's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. You're going to take the next stitch and pull it back and toss the bottom loop over. Then skip that empty peg, knit the next one, move it over to the next peg, toss the bottom loop over, and then knit to just before the last peg. So there's just before the last peg with a stitch on it. move it over to decrease, toss the bottom loop over. You've now got 2 sections. It's up to you if you want to go ahead and be working the back half flat. But what you're wanting to do is you're wanting to decrease by 10 on each side so that you can add your sleeves in later. So I've already decreased by 1 on each side, and since I'm ending here, I can continue with every row to just simply move the stitch over and then knit over and then move that stitch over and decrease on both sides with every row. If you're working with a toddler that's taller, then you might want to do it every other row. That'll give you a little bit more length between the pit and the shoulder area. But in the meantime, what you're going to be doing, and this is a suggestion to keep up with what row you're on, is to take a stitch counter and say that you've just done row 1. And while it may not matter so much on this back section, it will matter on the front section on keeping up with your cabling. But you will be going in and decreasing every row, and you're working 1/2 at a time, and you're working it down to where you have 10 empty pegs over here, 10 empty pegs over here, with a total of 20 on each side that are empty. And this is where you're going to be adding in your sleeves so that we can attach the sleeves to the neckline and be able to finish it up from there. So go ahead and pause the video and get your front sections decreased down to the 10 pegs on each side for a total of 20 pegs on the half that are empty to be ready for the sleeve. Next I'll start showing you how to do the sleeve and go from there. Okay, I have done my front area, which you can see there, and my back area, which you can see there, and then I've done a sleeve, which I'm going to show you the 6-row set that I'm doing, because we're doing the 6-stitch cable cross down the middle of the sleeve. And yes, I am looming it right on the loom, and I'm using 40 stitches, which is half of the loom. And the reason why I'm doing this is so I don't have to move a whole bunch of stitches from one loom to another. If you can keep up with not messing with your stitches, your stitches for the back and the front on either side on those 10 stitches that you're overlapping on, you'll do fine with this. If you can't, I would suggest using the sock loom with the same gauge, the 3/8 gauge, the 40 peg. I would suggest doing that instead, but if you can keep up with it, you can do it this way, and then you don't have a whole bunch of stitches to move around and combine later. So what I've done is I've done this flat. I've gone in and I've done the same seed stitch down here for 10 rows as I did at the base here. I've done a regular cast on and it's done flat, and then I've done a 6-row set all the way up. Now what I've done is to know that I have 20 empty pegs right through here, and so I know I need to add 10 more on this side and 10 more on this side to make 40. And so what you want to do is to make sure that your cable crossing is going to be doing it the way I keep showing you. you're going to need to start your cast on from left to right so that your first row is right to left, because your sixth row is your cable cross and you want that to be on an even row. And it's the same thing for when you are decreasing for the front, is you want to start from the left and go to the right and continue that for that 12 row set, so that you end up being, because we had already completed row 1, we know that that's going to be row 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So you're going to be starting on this side, and you're going to keep remembering that no matter what, you're going to be starting on the left side to keep working from left to right on your first section. So you're going to cast on working from left to right. You're going to overlap 10 pegs on your back and your front to get 40. So what I've done is I've already pretty much got myself up to a point where I've got the sleeve as long as I want. I'm going to do one more cable cross, and then I'm going to start decreasing so that it starts lining up and we don't have it overlapping anymore. And you're going to do this for the other side as well. And what the first row is, basically 1 through 4 is the same row. So I'll show you row 1, which is going to be 1 through 4. So what you're going to do is you're going to knit over You're going to knit over 16. Then you're going to purl 1, E-wrap 6, purl 1, knit 16. And that's what you're going to do rows 1 through 4. And then on row 5 you prep for your cable cross, and row 6 you cable cross. So go ahead and complete rows 1 through 4 on this, and then I will show you row 5 and 6, and then we'll show you how to finish up the top of the sleeve. Okay, we're to row 5, and so what we're going to do is we're going to knit over 16, purl 1, then you're going to double wrap the first 3 pegs, and then you'll just regular E-wrap the last 3 on that 6 peg E-wrap section. Purl 1, knit 16, okay, now this is row 6, so knit 16, purl 1. Now I'm going to go in and release those top wraps on those first 3 pegs. And then I'm going to even those loose loops up across the 6 pegs that I'll be cable crossing. There we go. Now we're going to skip pegs 1, 2, and 3. You're at pegs 4, 5, and 6. Get your stitch holder. Place loop 6, then loop 5, and then loop 3 on your stitch holder. Hold to the middle of the loom. Pull your working yarn in front of the stitch holder. You're at pegs 1, 2, and 3. Place loop 3 on peg 6, loop 2 on peg 5, loop 1 on peg 4. Then take loop 4, place on peg 1, and loop 5, place on peg 2, and loop 6, place on peg 3. Then you're going to go in and you're going to snug up those stitches. Okay. Then you're going to purl the next one and knit 16. Now you're going to do that for, depending on however long you want your sleeve to be, you'll need to measure your child's arm, add a little extra if they're growing. So that's however many times. I've done the cabling 10 times, and I'm fixing to start decreasing. So there's my sleeve. Now I'm going to start decreasing. So what I'm going to do is take one end and move it over, and then I'm going to knit over to my purl section there. And remember, this is row 1. We're going to continue that cable crossing. You should be able to do it 2 more times with this decreasing section. And purl 1 after E-wrapping 6. And knit the rest of the way over, which would be 16, and then we'll decrease on this end. Okay, we're going to decrease on this end, and we're going to knit our way over to our purl 1, E-wrap 6, purl 1, and then knit to the end, then decrease on the end. So you're decreasing at the beginning of each row. Keep that in mind. So as you're decreasing at the beginning of each row, you're going to keep your cabling pattern up. So you're going to have to keep up with that. And then knit to the end. And you're going to continue this process until you are down to no stitches are overlapped. See, right now we're doing stitches that are overlapped. So you're going to keep decreasing and keeping up with what row you're on. In the 6th row, you've got to remember to cable cross, and you keep doing that until you have no more overlapping stitches. And then you're going to stop, and you're going to work the other sleeve. And remember to keep your cable crossing running the right direction. You're going to be starting over here and working your way. So you're going to be starting in the front in your cast on and working your way to the back. And remember, you find your 20 pegs, count 10 in, and you'll know where to start over here and then move your way back over to here. So go ahead and complete your sleeves, and then when we come back, I will show you how to go in and do the turtleneck area and start working on finishing this up. Okay, I have completed both my sleeves. As you can see. And you can see that the stitches line up right beside each other consecutively. And so now what it's time to do is go in and do the neckline, which is a very short turtleneck. And we're going to start from the, where's the starting point? There's the starting point. And so here's where we're going to start off from. And the way we're going to do this is we're going to do a rib stitch on the sleeve sides, and then we're going to do this seed stitch on the front. So what we're doing is we're hitting the back first. So we're going to start off with the seed stitch. So we're going to knit and purl through the back section. And remember, you started with a knit over here. Okay, and I finished with a purl. Now what I'm going to do is knit 2, purl 2 over the next 20, which is going to be the sleeve area here. So we're going to knit 2, purl 2. Knit 2, purl 2. Okay, we're finished with that section. Now we're going to be in the front section, which means we're doing the little seed stitch. We finish with a purl over here, so we're going to knit 1, purl 1 over 20 pegs. Okay, now I'm to the sleeve, so now we're going to knit 2, purl 2 over 20 pegs. Okay, we're back to our starting point. And remember, we started with a knit on our seed stitch for the back half. Now we know we're going to purl. Okay, and I'm going to go and do this next row, and then you're going to repeat these last 2 rows for the neckline for like 20 rows, or however long you want the neckline to be. So we're purling and knitting this time rather than knitting and purling, doing the opposite of what we started with on the last row. Okay, now we're to the sleeve, and remember we started with a knit, so we're going to continue to start with a knit because we're doing a rib stitch over the sleeve area. So we're knitting 2, purling 2 over the next 20 pegs. Now we're to the front section, and remember we started with a knit, so we're going to start with a purl this time. So we're going to purl knit over the next 20 pegs. Okay, we're to the sleeve section, so we're doing the rib stitch, so we're starting with a knit 2, purl 2. Okay, we're back at the beginning. Now you're going to repeat those last 2 rows we just did for the neckline, however many rows you need to do to get the turtleneck long enough for your preference. Me, I'm probably going to end up doing 20 rows, and then I'm going to do a loose cast off, or you can do a super stretchy cast off. I'm going to do a loose cast off so it looks nice and clean, but you can still get the head through. And I'll post a link to how to do that below. Once you're done with that cast off, then it'll be time to sew up your sweater. And the great thing is you don't have to sew at the sides, but my suggestion with the sleeves is finding your points. So there's one point and there's the other. You fold them together and sew down, trying to line everything up. And I would suggest going in and really finding those edges. You're going to do that on both sleeves. Then you're going to go in and sew up the edges through there to close up those holes on either side of the sleeves and the front and the back. And then you're done. That's how you make this cabled sweater.